Thanks to our panel. We do want to take questions, so if you have a question, please do come up to the microphone. I'd like to just kick off though with a question here. Actually, I want to direct this one because there's so many publishers in the room and people who work in publishing organizations. I want to direct this question to Paul Shannon from eLife, because Paul, can you just, this came up in our discussion before, and as we were preparing for this panel, how have the changes in technology, I mean, we're talking about disruption here in a big way. How have these changes in technology affected your organization? I mean, in terms of the roles that people play, have you had to reorganize around this?
Yeah, so we've not really changed people's roles. It's just the motivation, the energy has changed. The fact that they have more freedom to be able to affect change in what they do every day is really evident in how they behave and what they do. So, as a good example, the site that we've just launched, everybody in the organisation, from the feature editors to the office manager to the production team, all got involved in how things are laid out, user testing, all that sort of stuff, which they said when they were using the platform before was really difficult, because although we had a collaboration agreement with them, the time it took from getting an idea to seeing it live just was too long. So they didn't ever see anything they suggested, and they got lethargic with it, I think. So being able to see that quick iteration and their ideas being shown in the live environment, I think made a big difference.
We're also talking about disruption of the business model, and one of the things you may have noticed, 4 out of our participants here are nonprofit organizations, 2 of them are for-profit organizations. I'd just like to get thoughts of the panel on what disruption your own journeys into technology have caused to your business approach to the business. That's a question just I want to ask generally, and Dan, you as well. You can drag your chair up here if you like. Does anybody want to say anything about that? Your choice of business model, nonprofit versus for-profit business, has that been affected by the approach that you've taken to technology?
I'll answer that briefly for eLife. So we were funded to start with, and then we had our funding renewed, but we know that's not going to last forever. That same money's been spent on scientific research around the world, so we need to be able to fund ourselves. So that we've been looking at ways that we can fund ourselves through the technology. So what we don't want to do is become this customer-focusing service provider, but instead we can help people do that. And there might be some revenue there for us. Certainly we offer right now consultative services for people, particularly other publishers, non-profits, and to try and get our software out there. So we're looking at perhaps as a business model around the consultative approach as well for us. So and the technology, without that there wouldn't be that emphasis and that need, I think.
So from our end, I would say that I think our core focus there is on sustainability. We're not so much about the profit, non-profit, open-closed distinction. What we want is for people to be able to run sustainable things. Today, launching a journal is extremely expensive, way more expensive than it should be, and this is a strong barrier to innovation. And from our perspective, we just want to enable people to figure out ways of doing things in a sustainable manner. So maybe, figure out the ways of. So we've wanted to bring like the costs of typesetting down to 0. This enables people to basically, if they constrain authors to a specific style guide, basically do 0 APC. Open access journals, if that's what they do, and if they have a little bit of foundation money on the side. So the idea is really to encourage any kind of model that can be sustainable. And for people, we've met a lot of people who are passionate about new ways of doing publishing, of doing reviews, of doing science, and we basically want them to be sustainable. And in making them sustainable, we think we'll be sustainable as well. That's the goal.
Does anybody else want to comment on that question?
I'd just say, as far as being nonprofit specifically, it really changes everything about the way that you approach problems, relationships, partnering, the code, the way that you communicate. And for me personally, having been in a bunch of for-profit companies before this, it's been fabulous. I can't kind of imagine going backwards.
I would say the same. When we launched Coco, the goal really was to transform. And if you're, and you know, of course, we do want to be sustainable as a nonprofit, and we were able to achieve, I think, about 65% sustainability in our first year through earned income. So it's completely doable. And I think we look to models like OpenStack as a way that you can generate so much value out of open source technology that there is no concern about sustainability. The money flows, and if people are actively using your technology, they will want to contribute to something that keeps that technology running. It's just a different business model than licensing or service fees. It's just it's sort of more of a membership model, but it's the same concept. But I agree. I mean, one of the goals is to absolutely lower the barrier for people to do more with research communication, whether that's launching more journals or whether that's experimenting with non-traditional publications like micropubs, preprints, other things like that. The goal really is to sort of level that playing field and allow for a lot more experimentation. And to do that, we really felt it was critical that we be nonprofit and be lean, but also that we be very practical when it comes to being self-sustaining so that we can remain in place and continue to do this over time. So it doesn't feel like it's a fly-by-night type of operation.
A lot of what I would say has already been said again. That's great. COS is a nonprofit. We are on the extreme end of not monetizing any of our products, and I don't think actually any of the nonprofits here are right now. And sustainability is obviously important. It's important to everybody. I don't mind for-profits in the space. I don't mind nonprofits in the space, clearly. The thing that I think is the most important, so when sustainability always comes up, the thing that should be coming up, I think, is this idea about lock-in. I think Science AI, I'm quite impressed. If their website is to be believed, if the presentation is to be believed, and I have no doubt it is.
I can show the source.
Lock-in is not part of that business model. You can get your content back. And I think this is the critical feature that we need to be thinking about when we think about sustainability. Because then you base the sustainability on the success of that service rather than the ability to withhold content from the person who provided it.
I'll just say, say one kind of comment about kind of the for-profit versus not-for-profit. So TrendMD is a for-profit company. I kind of look at it differently. It's almost, the more I hear of it, it's almost like a branding sort of thing, whether you're profit or not-for-profit. Many technology companies, Amazon being one of the biggest, has never made profit, but they're still a for-profit company. So it really depends on what the organization's goals and initiatives are. I think that's the kind of the more important thing to look at.
Well, unless there is another question from the audience, I have one last question. I do want to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, Flanagan from JAMA. Thank you. That was really exciting.
We'll need to get you on the mic so we can get you on this. Sorry.
Someone bring the mic.
Yeah.
Hi, you can hear me now? Okay. Thank you. It was a really great talk. I was just saying I feel like a dinosaur. Can you help me with a problem? So I have IT security leaders back at my parent organization. They're not in publishing, they're in the parent organization, who are fearful of all things open. They're afraid of theft, attacks, piracy, hacking. Can you give me one sentence I can say how they cannot be afraid? Because they're doing the opposite. They're locking everything down.
Yeah, so I've answered this question before. So the most prolific operating system in the world is Linux. That's completely open. The reason it's open is people can see every line of code.
Right.
So if there's a problem or a hole or a backdoor, you can see it. And the whole world can see it. And it gets plugged before anything else because people want to plug those holes because everyone has the same worries as your colleagues do. So, and the same goes for any other software. So our software, and anyone on this panel, you can see the software, you can see where the problems are, and hopefully if people see an exploit, they'll let you know first. If not, they might try and exploit it, but at least then there'll be a whole army of people trying to stop it afterwards.
Thank you. Maybe we'll be asking you to consult for us.
And I'd just like to add that, everyone is running open source software, even if they're not running Linux. I mean, Linux is a great example, but if you're using a web browser, even Edge has a lot of open source components inside of it, and all the other ones are almost completely open source. So, if they don't trust that, they shouldn't give you access to the web, which might be problematic.
Don't say that.
If you want one sentence, just say that the way that it's written is fundamentally different than the way that it's managed.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to let everybody go to lunch, but I would ask you please to thank our panel for their presentation.